Hi, Gail.
Hi, Michael.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
How are you holding up in all of this that's going on right now?
Holding up okay. It started out very slow and scary. And after lots of conversations on what we were going to do to make things as safe as possible, we've gotten to where we are today, and we have a lot of activity going on, but a lot of crazy things with adding COVID testing and quarantining and all those things to work now. It's really kind of interesting.
And how's Blair?
Blair is very fine, thank you. He's living his best life through this. He sleeps until noon. He's has a lot of Zooms in the afternoon with friends, and he's in a good place. And for anyone who doesn't know, Blair is my 41-year-old son with Down syndrome.
Is he? I didn't know he was my age.
Is he the same age? You just gave away your age to the world, Michael.
Oops.
It was a good year to be born.
Yeah. So basically, what we have this set up as is, it's not really a conversation between you and I, although I could talk to you all the live long day, but
That'd be lovely.
Yeah, but we wanted to invite any other participants who are just, this festival goers to have an opportunity to talk to you and to ask any questions that they wanted. And basically, my job is just to keep the ball in the air.
Okay.
So, is everybody off mic? Who do we have?
Hi, Michael. I've just requested that everyone unmute if they'd like, so they can go ahead and do that. And if you want to enable your camera, you can do that as well.
Yeah, we want to see some faces and hear some voices, if you feel comfortable with that. Who are you and what do you do?
Am I? Well, I started 30 years ago as an advocate for performers with disabilities because I truly believed that we can change perceptions, public perceptions, by including more visual opportunities for people with various disabilities. I also felt every child deserves the right to turn on a TV and see someone like them. My personal experience was in 1989, Life Goes On came on the air. It was a CBS show? I don't remember.
ABC.
ABC show that starred Chris Burke, who had Down syndrome. And I said to my son, watch this show, you're going to love it. This is quirky, da-da-da-da. And my son at 10 years old said, no, my Down syndrome's going to go away. Daddy's went away, my brothers went away. And I realized I hadn't been giving any adult role models with Down syndrome to my son. And he just felt it was something he would outgrow. So I found the show to be very good for him, to see a future for himself, to understand who he could be someday. And then I realized that his brother was glued to the TV set too, and he was 14 at the time, the same age as Chris's sister in the show, which was played by Kelly Martin. So I'm sure, one, Tim watched the show because Kelly Martin was cute to look at, and two, Tim watched the show because it validated him as a brother. He saw a sister who loved and sometimes disdained her brother a little bit, who sometimes was unhappy with him because he packed all the trophies from his trophy case when they went to Hawaii. And my son had experienced those frustrations with his brother, and now here was someone to share it with. And then oddly, on a whole other thing, which is an whole other Oprah, but in the 90s, my brother and his wife passed away, and we took in their 6 daughters. And Lifetime was playing Life Goes On in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. And without me saying anything about it, every afternoon at 2 o'clock, those girls would pile up on the couch like a pile of puppies and watch Life Goes On. And I'm sure they were learning how to accommodate their cousin that they now were living with every day instead of just seeing him, once a year for Christmas. So the other thing that impacted my life was people, when Blair was born in the year you guys were born, I could walk into a restaurant with him on my hip and silence the restaurant. People were not used to seeing a child with Down syndrome out in public. And I found about 2 years into the show, people would talk to him, and at restaurants, people would say to him, what would you like to eat? And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And you knew it was what was making the difference, because we had 4 channels back then, and if you weren't watching the show, you were at least seeing the commercials for the show. So you saw you could talk to that face. So, long story to tell you how I became an advocate. Then Blair ended up with a little commercial and drugged me into the business with him. He got it through Special Olympics, and I tried to find him an agent and couldn't. Ended up finding the Media Access Office, which did wonderful work for adults as a casting liaison, but not for children. So I volunteered and ran their children's division and got more kids in commercials. And then lo and behold, now here in 2013, I picked up at KMR agency and grabbed onto the performers they still had with disabilities from a department they had started with an agent who had since passed away, and started working at it. So now I've been a talent agent at KMR since then. So there you go, long-winded, sorry.
Yeah, I actually did have a question, sorry. My name's Peter. I was wondering, because you seem to have such a career over this breadth of time, what's the biggest shift or victory that you've seen in how talent is represented or treated by the industry?
Oh, great question, Peter. Well, I'll say that in the last 5 years, I've seen more activity for this than I saw in the first 25 years. There's also so many more voices now. So many other people are speaking about this. You know, when it first started, I felt like if I couldn't show up at something like this, who would hear that voice? Now there's plenty of voices. I'm sure Michael's got a load of voices for you guys to hear. But the biggest shift is slowly we've gotten the industry to understand that disability is diversity and has every right to be represented. And there's some little things happening that are kind of interesting. As an agent, we read the breakdowns and we submit a course on every disability role. And if we have talent who are union members or are union eligible, who have some good tape behind them, we submit them non-traditionally. We look at roles like, well, couldn't the school counselor be in a wheelchair? We had a school principal who was deaf. We've been able to do some of those things. But one of the cool things that's happening now is casting and producers are actually calling us and saying, hey, I'm going to release a breakdown for a barista. Could you give me somebody just who's got some diversity, somebody with a disability for that barista role? And this is thrilling to me because one of the biggest things I think we've been without in this community of performers with disabilities for all these years are co-star roles. If the film is about the disability and they're not insisting on going to some star actor, they're looking for somebody with that disability for the role. So here you are, an actor, and your first audition is to be the lead in a film. And you just aren't able to pull it off. You just don't have what it takes. But you maybe don't have what it takes just because you haven't had the opportunities to audition over and over again like other actors. So we're missing the rung of co-stars for a lot of people with disabilities. They're thrown into trying to be the lead and they're not. And then they turn and say, the producers turn and say to us, I'm sorry, we just couldn't find anybody that could do that job. You know, we're going to have to hire an able-bodied actor, a non-disabled actor for that role, which of course does not make all of us happy. So I think this new thing of who can you give me diverse in these smaller roles where nothing is said about the disability, they're just a character in real life, it's going to be amazing. That's what's going to make the difference for us.
What do you think about the
Thank you.
The sort of narrative split between what you're saying about actors just playing a role or being in something where the disability is brought, they shine a light on it, but it's to actually make a point?
Well, you know, there's things happen. I should wear my there are times that the disability is going to move the story forward, because that's what the story's about. But I think what's sad is that and I don't know how much your age, Michael, grew up with this, or the age of the people listening, But I grew up in the age of don't look, don't ask, kind of, you know, the emperor's new clothes. You don't look at anyone, you don't ask about them, you don't, you know, and how do you learn? How do you learn about other people if you don't have dialogue with them, if you don't get to know them? So I think we have generations now who have a little more experience with people with disabilities in their lives and understand that a person would be in the market shopping because they needed groceries. Where we had producers used to say to us, well, if they were in the market, you know, people would wonder why there were deaf people in the market. They're hungry. They're buying their groceries, for Pete's sakes, you know? That's why they're in the market. So it's getting the public used to seeing people with disabilities without them being a part of the story, yet knowing there's an underlying story that's deeper there, which I think just adds more to the story. You know, it's not being told, it's not being discussed, but you know there's more to that.
And Michael, I do have a question from Miss Christine Burke, who is also Miss Wheelchair California 2020. Congratulations.
Fabulous.
She would like to know, how has the pandemic changed how you cast and recruit talent?
Well, hi Christine, I don't cast talent. I represent talent to casting directors, but how I represent them and how it's different, it's interesting. There's more auditions on tape now than in person. So I encourage my clients to have a good camera, some good lighting, and to do their best with that. To always get a reader, even if you're home. You know, when you go into an audition, they're going to have a reader for you. If you're home, find a reader or get somebody on your phone that'll read with you. Don't go without the reader, because it's as important to watch your reaction to the person speaking to you and your acting as it is to see your acting when you're delivering the lines. I think it's going to make things maybe a little more accessible to people, more opportunities. There's no less travel, because once you get the job, it's you go early for a COVID test and you do this and you do that. So it's a little more complicated. But yeah, I think, and in taking on new talent, you know, I'm always looking for people with experience. I'm always looking for people who live in LA or New York proper. When it comes to children, I'm not necessarily looking for experience. I'll start them off for commercial work, just being adorable in the Target ads. Unfortunately, that doesn't work for the grown-ups. You have to go be an actor. It used to be that, you know, it used to be if there was going to be a wheelchair role, they'd go to a rehab center to look for actors, because to look for people. And then they come back and say, well, they can't act. And well, you're not looking at the actors. You're going to the rehab center. You know, so we want to make sure our actors are trained. They have to be as good, if not better, as other actors. And I think that's the one thing people don't understand sometimes. They think, well, I'm in a wheelchair, it'll get me in the door. It'll get you in the door, but are you going to stay in the room?
We also
you.
have a hand raised by Anna Packman. Anna, feel free to unmute yourself. Your mic is open.
Yes, thank you for the reminder, because I always forget to unmute myself. Hey, Gail, great to see you.
Hi, Anna, how are you?
I'm good, I'm good. So I was wondering if you are at all looking at the the literary side of things, just from the perspective of, I think a big part of the problem is that the industry is, you know, a little sort of, you know, brick to forehead, and if the roles are not being written as being written for a disabled cast, then I think that makes the job harder of getting disabled talent to be considered. And if we had more roles that are written, you know, both for actors with disabilities, but also just, you know, more authentic representation, because as we know, like so many of you know, roles that do get written in a lot of times just get written in so poorly. You know, I was wanting to.
This is an area where Michael could probably comment from his end, being a writer.
Well, but not for nothing. I have asked you the very same question. It's like, how do we get the writers in the room?
Yeah, and everybody kind of has to pick the thing they're good at and do it. And my thing is good at talent in front of the camera. so I have to put my efforts there. There's only how many, 20 on here? Okay, nobody go talk anywhere else. We do have a literary agent at KMR now. It's been tough during the pandemic. We were all on furlough for a while, so we weren't looking for extra work. We were just trying to keep our heads afloat. But if you've got some materials that you want to submit, especially if they've gotten some awards or some recognition, send your materials my way and I can share them. Especially, and if we can see what we can do. Her job is not just diversity and disability like mine. She's across the board. So, she doesn't maybe, she gets our passion, but that's not all that she does. So, but anyway, yes, we do need those roles written. Yes, we do need we need the authenticity on a set. I have a client right now who's got a development deal, and they're meeting and selling and pitching right now. And I keep saying, when you set up that writer's room, you have to have somebody with that disability in that writer's room. If it's about a sport, and if it's about a sport and they're getting someone on the writer's team that knows the sport forward and backwards, you also need someone who knows the disability forward and backwards to make it a solid show. And so I'm hoping we'll find more opportunities for writers. And that's why I'm so glad people like Michael are out there, learning and practicing their craft and making sure they can represent themselves well, because that's what they're going to be looking for. Nobody slides into this business. Everybody's waiting for this business. I mean, I have a nephew who got his master's in screenwriting at USC and won the Kingman Award, and he does software development for DreamWorks, because that's where his writing career took him. And it's baby steps.
And Anna, are you a writer or an actor?
I'm a terrible actor, so no, not that.
Well, if you know that, that's really a good step. I write on the side. I also kind of, like that example, I worked on the business side of entertainment for a number of years, and now work in the public sector doing digital marketing. So I write lots of tweets. Do you remember that line from Ghostbusters? I've worked in the private sector. They expect results. Lines.
The reason that I ask is because I think there's something to be said for, and it's not possible for everybody, but I think to try to do it yourself in some way. You may have to do it for $5, but if you have a story to tell that story, and don't wait for the studios to give you permission. Just do it.
Too, that question earlier on what's different, now it's so easy to make your own material. All you need is a cell phone and YouTube, and people are seeing your stuff nowadays, and that's a wonderful way to get recognized. And to, if I've got that much more to show someone when I'm pitching somebody, wow, that's amazing.
And the wonderful thing about writing is that you can be awful for days by yourself, and no one has to know. And so
I'm not as bad at that as I am at acting. Believe me.
Okay. So does anybody else have any questions?
I just want to say thank you for answering questions, and you're actually highly recommended by, I'm friends with Jennifer Kumiyama.
I love Kumi.
And I know. Well, she was my former sister in Miss Wheelchair California 2010. My whole platform is equitable representation for people with disabilities in the arts and entertainment. So
excellent.
Yeah, this has been awesome.
Can I tell a cool Kumi story?
Yes, please.
Jennifer Kumiyama is a lovely woman in a wheelchair who has a beautiful voice and sang for 13 years in the Hyperion Theater at the Aladdin show. People would walk away not even knowing they had seen someone in a wheelchair because her wheelchair was totally disguised as a carpet selling thing. I mean, it was amazing what they did. But years earlier, a Broadway casting director was casting that show. And he called me and he said, I want this woman, she's in a wheelchair and she needs to be in the show. What do I say to Michael Eisner? So I sort of Cyrano de Bergerac gave him what I would say. He'd get back to me with emails and say, look, here's Michael's email, here's so-and-so's email, what do I say to this? And I'd tell him what to say. And this went on for probably a couple of months until the show was completely cast and Jennifer was casting it. I did not know Jennifer's name. I just knew I helped this woman get a job at Disneyland. She did not know my name. She just knew there was a mentor assisting with helping her get hired at Disneyland. So 10 years later, we're both judging the Miss Amazing competition. And I walk up to her and introduce myself and sit down and I say, what do you do? And she says, oddly enough, for the last 10 years, I've been singing at Disneyland. And I went, oh my God, you're her. And I tell her who I am. And now both of us are sitting in the corner crying.
That's so cool.
It was just the best moment to get to meet. So yeah, I happen to adore her.
She's incredible. Oh, I love her so much. James Ian's another friend of mine too.
I love James.
Yeah, just everybody. But yeah, Kumi.
You know the good people.
Yeah,
Michael,
basically.
Michael,
Yes?
Gail, we're going to have to get ready to wrap this up. We've got about a minute or two left. So we can take the last questions.
Well, what is next for you, Gail? That's how I'll end it.
I'm working very hard. I've got two lovely agents that work with me, and they are learning very much because I actually plan on retiring in the next few years.
The next few years?
Few years, yeah. In 2023 is retirement date right now. I'll turn 70, and I think that's time to maybe get a little rest. So right now it's all about making sure the voices are there and making sure my department is strong and my agents are good at what they do. I mean, you got to hear the negotiations we do depending on each person's individual accommodations and needs. And these girls are amazing. I'm so very, very proud of them. So that's what's next for me. That and hoping that in the next 3 years, we really make this happen. It's time. It's time. I think it's gonna happen.
Well, I hope you introduce the new ones to me and to us so that we can continue doing what we do together.
Of course. And I'll always be available. I'll still share my voice. I just won't be in the office every day reading breakdowns.
Okay. Well, if nobody has any other questions, we're gonna prepare for the next movie, which is 25 Prospect Street, which is wonderful. So if you want to see that, please do.
Thank you, Michael, very much.
And thank you for you. Thank you, truly, and for giving your time to us.
My pleasure. Bye, everybody.
All right. Take care.